Your vibe, aka your vibrational energy, has a massive impact on your relationships and therefore your success, both personally, professionally, business-wise, artistically, whatever, and on your entire life, whether you're with others or alone. And I'm not just talking about a good mood or a bad mood here or there. We all have those. I'm talking about a deeper, more profound level of energy that you give off, whether you're aware of it or not. So that's what we'll be talking about today in terms of vibe. So my name's Coach David. Welcome to the channel. And I've been coaching people for over a decade, working with things like social confidence and vibe, with people that are really shy, socially anxious, but also just regular people who want to up-level their vibe, especially in situations around other people. And I've applied the same stuff myself and actually learned it myself first before I started helping others with it. So let's dive in and find out how your vibe affects your reality, your world, your life. We're going to cover some different perspectives. One is going to be the brain-based way and or kind of the standard psychological way. And then the second is going to be more of an energetic way. We're going to talk about vibe here. So first up, let's talk about the brain. Your vibe is related to your overall state of your mind and your emotions, really your brain and nervous system as connected to those. And that's controlled by the limbic system in your brain. So what's the limbic system? Well, the limbic system is responsible for your emotions, your motivation, your memory, and it's influenced by your thoughts and beliefs. It's part of a three-part brain where there's the reptilian brainstem, the limbic system, which is kind of like really saying the emotional brain, and then the cerebral cortex, which is where a lot of executive functioning, language processing happens. So obviously when we're talking about the limbic part of the brain, we're talking about that really felt emotional part of interactions between people and how our brains and our nervous systems literally sense and connect with each other. When you're feeling positive and confident, your limbic system releases dopamine, which is that feel-good hormone I'm sure you've heard about that motivates you to take action towards your goals, and in less productive ways, motivates you to take action on scrolling social media, binge watching Netflix, YouTube Shorts, TikToks, whatever. But when you're feeling stressed, anxious, or fearful, your limbic system will release cortisol, which is the stress hormone that can have a negative impact on your health, your relationships, and your success. So when we feel good in our nervous system and brain, positive emotions, right? It's all kind of the same thing, but we're really feeling regulated overall. We have a higher baseline of positivity, positive emotions, positive thinking goes along with that positive feeling. Then we have a better vibe. We have more of a natural inside out magnetism to us that people can sense. And we sense it through our limbic systems. And then conversely, on the other hand, if we generally don't feel positive emotions, feel more negative emotions on the whole, that's going to create a certain vibe that people pick up on subconsciously, again, through our limbic systems connecting. Now, you've heard me talking already about our limbic systems connecting together, that we're sensing vibes from each other, right? So that's where I need to bring in the concept of limbic resonance. So what is this? Well, limbic resonance is the ability that humans and actually all mammals that have limbic brains, that we can sense and sync up because of that capacity of those parts of our brains to connect. It's like when we can sense what our pets are feeling and they can sense what we're feeling. If you've ever had cats or dogs like I had growing up, I remember I had this one cat named Cinder. It was my first cat, my favorite cat, and he was gray like a cinder coal. I would sometimes feign sad because he would come over to me and start meowing and start rubbing against me, because I noticed that when I actually was sad, he would notice that and pick up on it. And I was just so amazed how intelligent he was. But really what was happening was his limbic brain sensing and picking up the sad vibes coming out of me, and being the caring, loving, wonderful cat that he was, he came over to comfort me. So now let's get into the energetic explanation of how vibe works. This is going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. This might get a little funky and weird. I've been doing a lot of exploration around quantum physics, string theory, all these types of things that are scientifically proven true, seeing how can I use these not only to better my life, but the lives of my clients, and help you guys as well with explanations that deepen our understanding so that we have more power and control over our lives, our connections with people, our success, etc. So according to quantum physics, everything is made up of energy. Quantum mechanics actually says this, including you, me, absolutely everything. The table, the chair, your cat, your dog, your mom, the hot dog, the hamburger, your vegan tofu burger, whatever. And whether we're talking about classic quantum physics with all the quarks, right? Pioneered by Niels Bohr, whether we're talking about string theory, which is in more recent years, or if you've heard of the Higgs field and Higgs boson, it all says the same thing on different levels, just seemingly smaller and smaller levels from what I can see. Everything is made up of little strings. That's string theory. Higgs boson is the way that particles manifest literally physical reality from higher dimensions of basically energetics. It's absolutely nuts, interesting, phenomenal. And I'm obsessed with how can we make this stuff work for us, right? You have to realize that thoughts and emotions are a form of energy. And how we're typically trained is, well, 3D reality is real. It isn't. This is scientific. This is proven by quantum physics, by string theory. 3D reality is not really what's real. There's all this underlying stuff that we can't see with our five senses that's happening. It's really important to get this. This is fact. This is law. And those of you that are my manifestation subscribers, but hopefully all my subscribers, whether confident, social, whatever you're here for, can really, really vibe with this literally, is because it comes to our thoughts and emotions where we really need to take a look. See, again, we often think that, oh, that table is real, or my skin is real, or your body, but we don't fundamentally see thoughts and emotions as really real. But according to physics, they are. They're a form of energy, and they're actually a very powerful form of energy. Many would say a higher form or higher vibration form of energy. And we know this because if we have better thoughts and emotions, we feel better. It literally affects our body. They say that heart disease, 70% of heart disease is caused by stress alone. And so people are working to tweak their diets and cholesterol and all these things. I'm not saying this won't have an effect, but not looking at how stressed out they are and how their lives are showing up. I actually got in touch with a former client who I helped many years ago change his life. But in his business, which I didn't help him with, he got stressed. Eventually, he had a heart attack. I come to find this year. I checked in with him. Very scary. He made it through, and he went through a full rehab program. And guess what one of the main things of the rehab program was? As soon as he felt stressed at work, he had to leave. He had to get out of there. It was a very hardcore, intensive rehab program in terms of having strong behavioral controls for what needed to be done so he wouldn't have recurring heart attack and possibly die because of stress, because of where his mind and his emotions went. Based on external triggers, yes, and a simple way to do that is to remove from the situation, but it doesn't work in every part of life, right? Especially if we're talking about things like being social when we're shy or social anxiety. Well, you can't remove the people because that's part of the result that you want, right? In certain places we can, in other places we can't. And fundamentally, it comes down to his belief system and his thoughts and his sort of emotional mental control that actually shapes his stress response. And so standard manifestation, law of attraction, will talk about the fact that we attract these situations by our thoughts and emotions, right? The way that I view it is a towards or away thought and emotional pattern, right? Or belief system. And that means if I focus on stuff that I don't want, I'm going to be driven to behave towards it. I'm going to call it to me energetically. When I show up around people, they're going to have particular reactions based on my levels of thought and emotion, which creates my vibe, right? And that's, again, happening in the nervous system and the brain as well on that level, but just on a pure energetic level. And I've done stuff where I've done experiments where I would go into a room of people and I would turn on shyness and awkwardness and see how they reacted to me, which I knew how they would. And then halfway through the party or whatever, I would totally switch my vibe up and people would immediately respond to me differently. I'm remembering a particular party at my friend Paul's apartment one time, kind of a dinner party. There were 30 people there, maybe. Reasonable size, right? Pretty reasonable size. And I remember doing that. And I felt like a different person. I could tell that the reactions that people gave me were like I was a different person. It can happen that quick. Of course, you've got to have that level of mental, emotional control. You've got to be able to have this skill set to be able to tweak your vibe. Now, normally I don't want to go around and do that, right? I did that for an experiment to see how quickly I could turn things around, given that I created a certain vibe entering and through the party before I turned it around. And one thing that's important to know about energy is that by the law of conservation of energy, which is a law of physics, it states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So everything is energy shifting from form to form. So all these interplays of energy are interacting. Now there's a classic law of attraction statement that like attracts like. I think that's incorrect. I'll show you why. How do opposites attract then in relationships, right? How do protons, which are positively charged, and neutrons, which are negatively charged, attract each other? If they're alike, well, they're not. They're polar opposites. That makes no sense. Certain forms of energy have affinities for other certain forms of energy. Maybe those things are like each other, but maybe not. Let's use the example of a not good relationship, right? Let's say there's the bad boy and he's kind of brooding and, very kind of mysterious. He's got some energy about him that women like, and a certain type of woman. And then there's a woman who's bubbly, right? And she's outgoing and she's a people person and a people pleaser. She has low self-esteem and she's attracted to Billy, right? Sarah's attracted to Billy. They're nothing like each other personality-wise, but they're attracted to each other. You see that? A lot of this stuff is very logical. That's why I love the quantum physics explanation. If we really look at how it applies to things like reality creation and how we create our vibes, what we attract or create in our lives in terms of relationships, business, professional success, etc. So at this point, I'm sure you're wondering, what does this have to do for my life, David? How can this help me? My relationship success, my business, career, professional art, music, sports, whatever you're into, right? Well, this is where like attracts like comes into play from my perspective, from an internal perspective out into our lives, right? If we tend to think negatively, feel negatively in a bad mood, we're just going to have a harder time. Things aren't going to flow in our life. We're not going to get what we want ultimately, or if we do, we're not going to be happy with it. And we're going to want something else and say, this wasn't good enough, right? We've all had those experiences. And if you are on a more positive track and you can find that flow internally, you're going to have better experience. You're going to get better results. You're going to perform better. This is just pretty obvious. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy to do, but we have to learn how to control our mentality and our emotions. Mentality is kind of the same thing as control your thoughts and emotions. We can use that word. But I often like to say, hey, let's pay attention to the emotional part, because it's actually the part that gets in the way the most. It's the limbic part, right, that I spoke about before with the brain-based approach. And here's the thing about vibe, okay? We're conditioning it all the time. And again, it's not about being perfect. Something that I try to explain to clients that may be in a lower place in life than certain others. Sometimes it takes a little while for them to get that, how they start their day, the kind of morning routine, and how they're thinking and feeling throughout the day, how they're managing that, how they're actually taking ownership of that, creatorship of that, and before bed too, affects their vibe moving forward, projecting into the future. So how we're shaping it, how are we paying attention with awareness? Are we just letting ourselves be overrun by negative thinking and buying into it and letting that affect our emotional state? Are we constantly resisting negative emotions and not wanting them to be there, which doesn't work, to resist those emotions in our nervous system? There's something called the 90-second rule, or what I call the 90-second rule. Any emotion that we feel, if we allow it just to be there without feeding it with thinking, it'll just pass. But that's not what we tend to do, right? That's why we have to intervene through the thought in some way. And whether that means saying something more in the direction that we want to go, how we want to be, what we want to do, what we want to have, or just kind of being with that thought, letting it pass, letting it go, not buying into it, doesn't matter. As long as we don't feed it, it'll pass. But that's not what we tend to do, right? People actually live their entire lives with an underlying narrative, and it might be quiet in the background. And at some point, it just becomes their emotional state. The narrative doesn't need to be there because it just is how they feel. But it all can be changed, I assure you. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's work, but the returns are massive in doing the work, in my experience, and helping others doing it, and the people who have been my mentors and coaches to learn from as well. It's absolutely worthwhile, unless you just want to be tossed around by life, especially in a negative way. And so whether we're using affirmations, whatever kind of mindset reframing, belief reframing, telling ourselves certain things with mantras, practicing more somatic body-based techniques to relax, to get present, releasing negative thoughts and emotions, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's whatever works. And I have many ways to work with clients on that and use things myself. But something I want to talk about here is, again, on that energetic, even quantum view of things, which might be a little strange to long-term subscribers. Not so strange if you're coming from some of the manifestation videos I've made around Neville, etc., which totally aligns, by the way, with what people like Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, and the like say, William Walker Atkinson, who I found through my new friend, Joseph Rodriguez, who has a great YouTube channel. Check him out. So let's go back to this 3D concept of how 3D is not fundamental reality, as shown by quantum physics, string theory, and the like, and that there's higher forms of reality out there. There's actually higher dimensions. String theory first said there's 11 dimensions. Now it's up to 26. Well, to my mind, it's probably infinite. How could it not be? It just keeps going, going, going. Whether things get infinitely bigger or smaller, it's all different distinctions and kind of made up things that we can use to help manipulate reality and do things we want or understand it. But fundamentally, all these dimensions can go on forever. But the idea is that we're a lot more than 3 dimensions, and we could even have access now through our imagination. Some call it 4th dimension, although that's really time is the 4th dimension in physics as far as I understand. But if you want to go to 4D, 5D, 6D, doesn't matter. That if we start to see reality, and I've been playing with this more and more, as really shiftable and shapeable. And it actually is. If you look at your life and look around at what's happened to you, and that your life is totally different and that you're totally different, there's like an intuitive sense we can get if we really look sort of inwards on this and pay attention. I've noticed that there are certain times in life where, let's say, a really awesome positive event or a really bad negative event is happening to me, quote unquote, right? I've noticed how reality itself and how I feel feels kind of warped, and like things are like all of a sudden just changed, and there's sort of this energy of amorphousness, right? That things are malleable and shiftable. It's like, how could this be? I thought it was this way. I thought this was reality. It was just kind of static like this. But we're shown that it's not, just by our own intuitive experience. And it's wonderful to see science come through and confirm that. That's all these morphing, shaping shifts of energy interplaying with each other is what we're talking about here. And it's really kind of beautiful, at least to me, seeing as an orchestration of energy playing out for whatever reason. I don't know the reason, but it does do that. It's very observational. And the more that in my own awareness and perception that I see it that way, the more things can change in an instant, the more I can change that vibe. Do you see what I'm saying here? I think this is pretty powerful. It feels powerful to me. What do you think? I'd love to hear in the comments below what you think of this. And or do you see it this way? And have you gotten results by saying, wait a second, this 3D physical, quote unquote, hard static reality, it just ain't so. It's really more flexible, malleable, energy shifting. And the more that I place my awareness and consciousness on that, the more that actually happens. Either way, right? I've had experiences like that where I've got to be more mindful of my mind. Otherwise, things start going in the wrong direction quickly, which is also not necessarily a bad thing, because I have higher awareness and I see it and I go, oh, undo, Control Z, open Apple Z. Got to undo that thinking. Got to undo that, set of actions and direction, whatever. And then I can quickly shift back into the right path. And so some of you still at this point might be thinking, even though I've mentioned it, wait a second, I can't always feel good, positive, happy, etc. There's all kinds of stuff that happens. It's just not like that. This is BS to think I can be like this all the time. Absolutely agree. You can't be all the time. But you want to be on the glass half full side rather than the glass half empty in what we're talking about vibe and how that affects how you show up and how you perform and how you interact with others, right? All these types of things. So the key is to be aware of your vibe and make a conscious effort to be shifting it when we get off track. This is dirt off your shoulder stuff, like Jay-Z says, right? Pick yourself up. When you get knocked down, pick yourself up, right? Get back on track. This is what this is about. This is not about being perfect. And one of my mentors has said, if you 51% of the time felt, thought, believed more positively, and 49% of the time were negatively conditioning yourself, feeling that way, your life would drastically change, which is a statement to that most of us live on the negativity side, because that's how, well, certainly how we get conditioned by society, my belief, but actually our brains and nervous systems, 2/3 of the emotions classified are negative. So we're already on the negative side by default. We have to work to become more positive, except for those loving, amazing, freakish people that just seem to be naturally positive people. Let me tell you, you're not looking at one of them here. Okay, I've had to do a lot of work to get where I am, and I'm far from perfect. But think of that. If you're just a little bit on the glass half full side, you're ahead of most of society, and your life is going to drastically change, and you can build it up from there, right? So this is about our habits, our practices, and what we're committed to, and our ultimate decision that I want this life and not this life. What do I want? I'm going back in this direction again. Close that door. Open the other one again, right? And start going down that path. And by the way, if this is something that you'd like help with, I do offer coaching. At the time of this video, coaching might be open or there might be a wait list. Either way, invite you to apply or sign up to the wait list if what I'm saying vibes with you. I've worked on people with their vibe for years, starting out helping people socially, but it's expanded in other areas of life. Absolutely. Have more professional success, business success, even dating success, right? Kind of like social ties together. It's really the key to having things be more effortless and not having to focus as much on what to do, what to say, exactly how to do, some particular thing in life. Because when we get in that state, that vibe state, that's on the positive, which is really kind of a flow, a natural flow, man, things just feel like they happen so much more effortlessly, right? Effortless is a feeling type of thing. It's not that, hey, we're never taking action, because we are. In Chinese, it's called wu wei, effortless effort or effortless action. That is a wonderful place to be. And so many things can shift very quickly in life by living in a more positive vibe overall. So finishing up here, your vibe affects everything, right? It affects your relationships, success, personal, professional. And we covered a brain angle. We covered the quantum physics level, a little bit of that manifestation woven in there, because it's really so connected to the physics level, energy levels, right? And our thoughts and emotions, they emit energy, really. And this energy creates and brings forth and interplays with other, quote, things out there, forms of energy that creates that version of our life. So it's really important, again, to make a conscious effort to go on that glass half full side and vibe. I promise you it will be well worth it. As someone who has been through the ups and downs just like anybody else, and been at rock bottom and had to pull myself out and get some additional help, knowing that I couldn't do it alone. And so remember, it is okay to have bad days, right? To have negative emotions, have negative thoughts. I'm not saying it's not okay. There's no judgment here. I'm just talking about what works in doing this over a decade plus, myself helping others do it in their own lives. So it always starts with awareness. That's the key. And hopefully these concepts and stuff that I've helped you in this video with, or tried to help you with, express to you, will help you out. So as we finish up here, remember to like, subscribe, drop a comment, share it out if you find it valuable to friends, family, etc. Really meant to help you all out there. And until next video, go out there, up level, rock your vibes, and we're complete. See ya.